Welcome back to Garage Money Pit, and thanks for checking in. Now, this was supposed to be an introductory video on my Triumph T120 that I teased in the short that I published a few weeks ago, and that's linked somewhere up here. Alas, it wasn't supposed to be. It's a very, very dreary January day out there, and given how the color on the Triumph pops when the sun hits it, I'm postponing filming that until, well, I have sun to hit it with. So, what are we doing here? Well, I bought another BMW, as probably everybody in the audience already guessed. This one, and this is actually a rather rare model. Well, at this point you're probably asking yourself what I'm on or what I have been consuming, because clearly this is a K1100 RS and they made tens of thousands of them. So why am I saying this is a rare bike? Good question, because this is not a K1100 RS. It does have the bodywork of a K1100 RS, but what you're seeing here is the answer to the question nobody ever asked, which is, if we took a K1 and put some sensible bodywork on it, what would it look like? Roughly like this. So what this is, it's a K100 RS 16 valve. It's a model that was only made for a couple of years. So, why does it look like a K1100 RS? This is where things get a little bit murky, because if you know your BMWs a little bit and you know what a K1100 RS 16 valve is supposed to look like, you notice there's a bit of extra plastic here. As best as I can find out or figure out, there was a dealer fit option in the US where you could basically take your K100 RS and have this RS bodywork fitted, which is kind of what I think happened to this one. Long story short, I don't know why it looks like a K1100 RS, because it isn't one. It's very low mileage, it's got less than 14,000 miles on it. This is a bit of a gamble on these bikes because they don't like sitting, and if you at the back were currently thinking like, oh yes, water pump, oil pump, exactly, that's one of the typical problems you get with these bikes when they sit. This one doesn't seem to be leaking anything. It needs a clean, it needs a polish, the usual stuff. Keep in mind, this bike is 32 years old. This is a 1991 model year bike, and I think it's held up pretty well for being this old. It came with the side cases, no top case unfortunately, although, well, you have to watch a little bit further into the video regarding the top case. Which brings us to the question of riding footage, because it's cold, it's grey, it's dreary, is the date codes on the tires are from 2005. It's January 2023 now, the tires are 18 years old. I'm not going to ride this bike. I've actually ridden it very, very slowly, and it was interesting to say the least. So the first thing before I do anything else on this bike is it needs new tires, and once I've got new tires on, did some other minor work, then we'll take it out for a ride and I'll get you some riding impressions. Okay, as you can see, it's got pretty low miles, and I think they're genuine. As to why I think the mileage is genuine, you can see the paint marks here and here on the bolts still. If this was a bike that had like 100,000 plus miles on it, you wouldn't be able to see them. I also probably want to find out why it looks like the battery hose is not hooked up. Other than that, it has the tank gauge and it has the temperature gauge here. I think both of them are a little off. The temp gauge here, I think, is either reading a little low or it's running cold, might need a new thermostat. Now, I only rode it in cold weather and it got up to a little bit past the third mark. Again, I have to check that, but I have to check over the cooling system anyway, because these things are notorious for having seized fans, and I need to make sure the cooling fan is working. Because if it's not, these things overheat fairly quickly. You look at that fork leg, there's pretty much no corrosion on it, no stone chips. This looks like a very low mileage bike. The other thing is, typical test on these, there's a little play in the bobbins, but not a lot yet. I've owned these with much worse, but it might need new bobbins eventually for the brake discs. That's a common problem on these. Other than that, there are a couple of minor things. This lens here has a crack. So this lens has a crack here. This one has one here. But keep in mind, this is a 32-year-old bike, right? So I'm not complaining. This was also a nice find in the pannier. This, I believe, is a BMW accessory bag that you could buy back then, and it's got both bags with it. So this is a pretty rare find. We'll have a look inside in a second if there's anything in there. It's also, you probably noticed this, a lot of RSs seem to have this. This is a rack for a top box, and BMW did make a top box specifically for like something like the K1100RS, K1100RS, K75S and bikes like that. This bike didn't come with the top box, it only came with a mount. The top boxes are super hard to find these days, the small ones. You can find the bigger ones from the LTs easier, but I managed to find one. It's on its way. I should have it in a week or so, and that would give me the full luggage set on this bike. Okay, so let's have a look at these bags. I've not looked in there. Okay, whole lot of mountain air in this one. So I only got one key with the bike, and I was hoping maybe it's hiding in one of these, but it's not in that one. Okay, here's the other one. More fresh mountain air. And so nothing in them, but I've actually never owned one of these bikes that had these accessories, so I'm very happy to find those. Let's have a look under the seat. So underneath here, well, obviously it's a Corbin seat, I already mentioned that. This is the black metallic, even though it's looking more gray than black to me these days. I also have to pull most of these electronics out. I need to get at the battery that's under here. Most BMWs of this vintage are notorious for being very sensitive to battery voltage, so this thing urgently needs a hookup for one of my battery tenders. Very typical sign that the battery is low on these is that you get an ABS fault light, even though the ABS is okay. Okay, so we have the original sticker. I think there's some warning stickers missing here. I need to see if I can find one of those. Now let's have a look inside here, what sort of interesting stuff is hiding in here. So this is normally on European ones where, amongst other things, you'd find the first aid. Wow! Sorry, the first aid kit. We pretend we didn't see fuses. This is the original manual that came with the bike. Toolkit, and that feels like it's complete. We'll open that up in a second. This guy was missing here. I don't know if that fits in with the Corbin seat, so we'll have to figure that out. What else is in there? And the manual for the ABS. Now, this is something I did not expect. I didn't realize it had the original manuals with it. That's really, really cool. Right, and this looks very much like an original tool roll. Let's see if I can... Sorry, I'm very much right-handed. Let's see if we can open this up. Oh yes. It's pretty cold at the moment, so I expect everything to be rather stiff, but... Yep. This is, I would say, an almost complete toolkit. It is the complete toolkit. I thought it was mostly complete, but it is complete. I was looking for this adjuster, which, by the way, is also really need it for checking the gearbox oil level and stuff like that. So this is a tool you really need for these bikes. Okay, so it has a complete toolkit, including, I think, feeler gauges for the, that looks like feeler, no, these are feeler gauges. So there are feeler gauges in there, probably for valve adjustment and ABS sensor adjustment. So yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with this. It was a bike that, as I mentioned in the intro, I bought this sight unseen based on a few photos on ADV Rider. So this could have gone highly sideways, and it didn't, and I'm very happy about that. Okay. I just found something else that I wasn't aware of. This has a throttle lock on it. I was wondering why the bar end weight was loose, but obviously it's got a throttle lock on it. So whoever bought this bike and owned this bike did accessorize it rather nicely. And, you know, given the rarity of the bike, so what are my plans? Well, I am not going to cafe racer this thing. It's a pretty rare bike. I like my bikes relatively stock. So, you know, we might find a few aftermarket parts on this one magically appearing, but this is not going to get cut up, turned into a cafe racer or anything like that. This is going to stay what it is, a pretty rare K100 RS16 valve with a couple of tasteful accessories and generally kind of just brought back and being used. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. There will be more videos on the Saab. I am currently waiting for parts. I have to order a couple of parts that look like they're not in stock in the US. And I have to order them from Sweden, so it's going to take a little while. In the meantime, yes, it's driving. Yes, it still needs work. And I need to find some parts that are no longer available. We'll talk about that in the next Saab video, which is hopefully going to come up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down there. Everything's appreciated. Thank you very much.